was having a conversation with a person who doesn't believe in the flat earth, and he or she sent me a huge list of flat earth model problems. I thought the questions and answers would make for an interesting video. I'll keep the original poster's identity a secret because I definitely don't want to advertise this person to anyone for any reason, which will become obvious to flat earth supporters as this series proceeds. Let's just say that this poster is very demeaning in conversation, even if these questions were penned with a little more respect. Less is best in some cases, right? Now here's the opening statement for the post. Here's my list of spherical proofs and the proofs against the flat earth. I'd love to hear what you have to say, think about some or all of it. Please comment on any or all of the items. These are problems for flat earth theory. If you know what you're talking about, then you should have no problems providing an answer to these. Not a link to some video, not a URL to somewhere. An explanation in your own words with no ducking the questions. To that I say, I'll be providing links for certain answers so everyone watching or listening can get a better idea of what's going on, and I'll gladly provide an explanation in my own words. I wouldn't want there to be any room for doubt. Question 1. Distance. Qantas has flights from Sydney to Buenos Aires every day or every week. It's about 9,000 miles and takes 14 hours at 640 miles per hour. On a flat earth, the distance between Eastern Australia and Buenos Aires is enormous. They are on opposite sides, exactly, of the flat earth map, more than 12,000 miles apart, and the flight between them would take at least 20 hours. These flights take 14 hours. Explain. The simple explanation is fake non-stop flights. They can't be boarded or flown. The flat earth subject has been picking up speed for just over a year, maybe 18 months now. And in all that time, no one has ever stepped forward and claimed that they have taken that flight. If it was a regular thing, then there would be willing witnesses, and lots of them since it's a daily or weekly flight, which tells me that you didn't even look into it yourself, because you don't know if it's daily or weekly. That means that I know coming out the gate that you'll just be parroting what others told you instead of finding out for yourself. We'll see. Measure that against the 1- and 2-stop flights that we know exist at the same airline, to and from the same city, but with stops in North America on the way, which far outnumber the supposed non-stop ones. Ridiculous on a sphere, labor, fuel costs, etc., but a straight line on a flat earth map. It's a point for the flat earth model, not for the sphere. Question 2. Flights over the South Pole. Flights travel from South America to New Zealand by going over Antarctica. On a flat earth, this is impossible. You would fly off the disk of the earth. Yet these flights happen. Explain. Well, there's a no-fly zone set up around Antarctica, and a protected treaty, even in the Cold War days between the US and USSR, that doesn't allow any regular people to go explore. If you can provide the link to the booking URL for that flight, I'd love to see it. Same with the non-stop Qantas one. I'd really like to check the time and speed and distance they give, and see if it all makes sense. There are no regular flights doing that as far as I know, and since you did not provide a link for proof, it's a little hard for me to check out. Plus, they might list a certain speed as being lower than it actually is, since we can go 800 or 900 miles an hour in a plane. Thus, we can get there in the time you quoted. But without the links to check your claims out, I cannot vet them. Now, I have seen YouTube footage of sightseeing planes supposedly hugging the coast of Antarctica, but they do not go near the pole or cross any of the continent, and no commercial jet does, even though it would save many hours and lots of money on fuel and salary and food and drinks and other expenses every day. I found a video that asked the questions along those lines. Why no Antarctic flight paths between South America and Africa? At half the distance of the current route, which doesn't go around Antarctica, it seems like that if it was possible, they'd have done it already. The distance is not too great because, as I'm sure you're aware, we have longer non-stop flights from the USA to Australia today. There'll be a link in the description under link for question 2. Question 3. Shipping. Shipping regularly sails due south going around the bottom of the globe and comes north again without making a 180-degree turn. This is impossible on a flat earth if you look at the map. You can't be pointing due south and then be pointing north again without making a turn, however gradual, of 180 degrees. Explain. I'd like the people that believe this to provide proof. I couldn't find any shipping lanes that exist down there. I did find shipping lanes that cross the oceans, but not any that go under the sphere Earth and back up the other side. In my opinion, this is a false claim, plain and simple. I'm not sure if it's a personal opinion or if this is something that globalists parrot, but we can all view the shipping and flying lanes online, basically live. And I think there's a 5-minute delay for planes in the US. So taking that into consideration, it's pretty easy to determine who's telling the truth. Question 4. Rotation problems. Foucault's pendulum. A pendulum, when swinging, has its own inertial frame. It resists being moved in any way except along the line it is making. You can try this and see for yourself. A pendulum long enough and heavy enough will swing unaided for 15 minutes at least. In that time, although the pendulum continues to swing back and forth, it will describe part of a circle. This demonstrates the Earth turning beneath the pendulum. The pendulum rotates clockwise in the northern hemisphere and counterclockwise in the southern hemisphere, just as if the Earth were rotating beneath it. Well, there is no evidence that the so-called rotation of the Earth is responsible for the effect. The movement of the ether is just as likely since it's all relative, right? Question 5. Water down the drain. Water going down the drain swirls exactly the same way. There is no explanation for this in the flat Earth model. Now, I think the person meant that water swirls one way in the northern hemisphere and another way in the southern hemisphere. So I'll base my answer on that presumption. And water only swirls when someone or something introduces a direction to it. It's a myth that water drains or spins opposite to each other south of the equator versus north of the equator. There's an obvious con going on around the internet now showing the supposed Coriolis effect on water at the equator and just north or south of it. The con men and women fill a bowl and make the water still, put a flower or leaf in the water to show that the water is steady, and then release the plug at the bottom and watch the direction, if any, that the leaf or flower travels around before it goes down the drain. But it's been debunked as they are slightly giving the water a direction just before releasing the plug when they are either north or south of the equator, but they're not doing it when they're over the equator. It's a scam artist play. There's another version of it with unevenly made sinks. You can do it at home with a bucket and a hole, and there's no swirl at all. Alright, that does it for the first installment of Flat Earth Q&A. Check out my channel for the continuing saga. And remember, be good to each other, God loves you, and we'll talk soon.